We are constructing an arch culvert on State Route 234 in Dougherty County. The existing arch culvert that we had a rock face, wings, and wing walls and head walls. And we are taking the existing rock off of the existing head walls and wing walls to construct the new head walls and wing walls on the new culvert. The process entailed actually taking the rocks off of this with the means of with an excavator and some hammers. The mortar that held the rocks in place was actually harder than the rocks were, so we're having a hard time when we're getting them off. The rocks were actually breaking, and the wall was, the mortar was staying in place. And that was a challenge for the contractor, because they had to remove all the excess mortar off of the rocks in order to shape them and to cut them in the dimension that we needed to put on the new face. They built a typical culvert of wing walls and a head wall on there out of concrete, and they drilled dowels and dowel is nothing but a piece of steel that sticks out of the existing. And in this case, the concrete. It just kind of takes the concrete and the new substance and kind of makes them a solid object. And they drilled out. They drilled out the dowels. They epoxy coated them in there, and they took just plain mortar. And they mortared the rocks to the new head wall around the dowels, and we had us a solid wall. Every one of the stones that are on the new wall come from the old wall. They were able, with the size of this wall that they had, they were able to cut a lot of the rocks in half and incorporate them into the new wall, and it actually worked out that we had, in fact, I think we have stone left that we can actually use on the next wall whenever we do it, to put some of the other stone on this side if we have to. But it worked out perfect that we had just enough stone, or we had more than enough stone from the old wall to put on our new wall. We're adding 4 travel lanes and a median turn lane. The old culvert that we had was insufficient. It was too small, and instead of just widening the old culvert, they elected to build a new culvert on a new alignment, since the length of the culvert would have been too far into the actual creek that we're in, the Coolawahi Creek, and so we put it on a new alignment so it could fit better into the creek. We moved the culvert approximately 30 feet from the old culvert to, that's from the outside wall to the outside wall is approximately 30 feet, which, like I said, entails so we can widen the creek enough to get the natural water flow to come through the creek as it was prior to construction. Whenever we get through 4-laning this, it's going to put the access to where the fishermen used to come in here and fish off of the bank. It's going to put the access so far up that they probably will not have access, due in fact that we're going to put curb and gutter in place and sidewalk in place, and we're extending the culvert so far that they're not going to have the same ability to get in and out, and I'll assume that the point of having historical landmarks is so people can see them, and we put it, we done the culvert wall, and the culvert's beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful structure that they built, and it's just a shame that more people will not be able to see it, because access will be so limited, due in fact that we have curb and gutter and sidewalk that's going to kind of block their entrance to get in and out of it, and the fishermen still may come down. I don't know. They like to fish. It's a good place for them to fish, I guess. And they very well could, but it's just not practical like a bridge where people could drive under it or drive next to it and see it. You can't really see this from the road. You have to actually get out of your vehicle and come down and look at it in order to even get a glimpse of how pretty it actually is. This is the completed wall that we done, the wing walls and the head wall. They've got the new arch culvert in, the new arch metal pipe that they have in. They have it in and ready to go. Putting this stone wall in I guess it wasn't a new procedure, but it was new for me, and it was new for the contractor. They've never done anything like this before, and their practice that they could recall and that they knew of. And I mean, there was a lot of years out here amongst the contractor, especially. They've been out here for a long time, and the project superintendent has probably been with them for 25 years, I believe, and he's never seen anything like this. But really, in the end, I think that they are real proud of their product. They done an awesome job, in my opinion, and I mean, it looks really good, and you know, a lot of the department folks within our district, you know, the ones that have seen it, they like it. It's just a real pretty. It's a real nice feature to have on this project. And I mean, this was definitely different from, you know, things that we've done. You know, typically we do box culverts that are pretty plain and simple. You know, they get in and get out. And you know, this required a little bit of thinking from our office and from the contractor and you know, from the department in general. And I mean, it was a fun process.
And can you talk a little bit about you know, how does this process take long? Is it a longer process to do this? And also talk a little bit generally about the cost of doing something like this compared to just putting a standard box culvert in. I'm not real sure on numbers. I know what our bid price was on this, and our bid price it's kind of like the same price for a box culvert. I don't think the contractor they really understood the complexity of what actually went on here. Whenever they were actually doing their bid, so their bid could have been a little lower than what they really expected. I don't think the actual construction was that bad. It was just the leading up to actually get it done, and the heartache of this contractor trying to perform trying to build a new structure that, you know, we haven't really seen a whole lot of. I think was more difficult than it was with the actual replacing the stone. The stone was, you know, it was a tedious part of it. It was a difficult in some sense, but it really wasn't the hardest part about the actual construction of the culvert. The actual archway, getting it ready to put the metal pipe in, was a lot more difficult than putting the rock on there. You know, it was just a process of getting the proper approvals from the proper offices and getting things done that, you know, the time-consuming part of the paperwork process was probably more difficult than it was for them to actually come and perform the work. Was there any challenges in trying to communicate to the contractor what exactly was wanted?
No, not really. It's just the paperwork trail was. I mean, it was difficult. You know, they had in their mind to do a certain thing, and then it kind of got changed because of, you know, certain things here and there. You know, and it wasn't that it was a difficult communication. It was just different. I mean, it was a cakewalk when they started with the rock. So I mean, that was pretty simple.
And when they put the rock together, were they looking at pictures to see how to do it, or plans, or how did they figure out how they want to do the design?
But basically, they just, I mean, we had the other one to kind of look at as an example, and I mean, this one is a little different. The other one was a completely rubble type, you know, it didn't have any concrete in it. But I mean, they just kind of eyeballed the old one, kind of seen what it looked like, and they freehanded it. I guess they done it like they did in the 30s, just kind of had a picture in their mind what they wanted, and that's what they did. On one of the pillars had a 1936 plaque that was on there, and you know. Myself and the contractor, we talked about trying to keep it, and you know, we wanted to keep it. We wanted to incorporate it into the new bridge, and as we were taking the pillar down, it broke, and you know, it kind of was a bummer for everybody. And you know, we flirted with trying to maybe piece it back together or something, but you know, it didn't look right, and you know, we didn't think it would be all that wonderful to look at with it kind of broken up the way it was.